Hello everyone. Today, my group will present our analysis of The Thing Around Your Neck by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. We will break down the key elements of the story, focusing on how the writer uses her characters and narrative to challenge cultural stereotypes and illustrate the struggles of a Nigerian immigrant in the United States. Our goal today is to deepen your understanding of how the writer blends an authentic portrayal of Nigerian culture with the universal challenges of adapting to a foreign environment. We will also discuss how this story fosters empathy and cross cultural awareness, especially in the diverse multicultural communities that we inhabit. Before we dive in, let me quickly introduce my group members. My name is Afif Hakim bin Azmi.
Hi, I'm Nurul binti Mohammad Sabri.
And my name is Alia Sofea binti Muhammad Izaham. So before we dive into the analysis of the short story, let me give you a brief introduction to the author Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. Chimamanda is a Nigerian author born in 1977 and is one of the most celebrated writers of her generation. Some of her most well-known works include Half of a Yellow Sun, Americana, and Purple Hibiscus. Her storytelling is powerful, often exploring deep themes such as identity, immigration, race, and also gender. What makes Kimamanda's writing so impactful is her unique perspective as someone who has lived in both Nigeria and the United States. Her works often reflect her personal experiences and give voice to complex cultural and societal issues. Over the years, she has received numerous awards for her writing, strengthening her place as an influential literary figure. So now let's explore the context of the thing around your neck. First, for the cultural and geographical context, the story takes place in two distinct settings, Nigeria and the United States. It portrays the immigrant experience, particularly that of Akuna, who is in the search of the elusive American dream. The narrative highlights the challenges immigrants face when trying to adapt to a new culture while grappling with the longing for their homeland. Moving on to the historical and social context, we see the influence of Nigeria's post colonial legacy. This background shapes the societal expectations and norms that characters like Akuna encounter. Additionally, the economic conditions in Nigeria are a significant factor in her decision to migrate, reflecting a broader theme of economic disparity that drives many to seek opportunities abroad. Lastly, we must consider the gender and power dynamics presented in the story. There is a notable contrast between gender roles in Nigeria and those in America. In Nigeria, traditional expectations often dictate a woman's place in society, while in America, Akuna experiences a different set of challenges and freedoms. This clash of cultures is a crucial element of her journey and highlights the complexities of her identity as an immigrant woman. Now, let's delve into the setting of our short story. The setting plays a crucial role in shaping Akuna's experiences and highlights her struggle as an immigrant. The story is set in two primary locations, Nigeria, which is Akuna's homeland, and various places in the United States, where she lives. Nigeria represents her roots and cultural identity, while the US embodies her search for opportunity and the complexities of immigrant life. The emotional setting is marked by feelings of loneliness, displacement, and cultural clash. Akuna experiences profound loneliness as she navigates life in a foreign country, feeling disconnected from her culture and community. This sense of displacement is further compounded by the cultural differences she encounters, leading to an inner conflict between her Nigerian identity and her new American reality. As for the social and cultural setting, Akuna struggles with isolation in urban American life, where she often feels like an outsider. Additionally, there are significant family pressures stemming from her life in Nigeria, which adds to her emotional turmoil as she tries to balance her family's expectations with her own desires in a new environment. Okay, so now I will talk about the key characters in the short story, starting with the main character, Akuna. Akuna is a young Nigerian immigrant who moved to the United States with high hopes and aspirations for a better life. She represents many immigrants who seek the American dream. As the story progresses, Akuna struggles deeply with her cultural identity and finds it difficult to fit into American society. The clash between her Nigerian heritage and her new environment creates internal conflict. For the character arc, throughout the story, Akuna feels increasingly isolated and detached, not only from her Nigerian roots, but also from the American culture she is trying to embrace. This dual sense of alienation is a central theme in her character development. A quote that reflects her expectations versus reality is when she says, I thought everyone in America had a car and a gun. This line illustrates her initial misconceptions about American life and the challenges she faces. Moving on to Akuna's uncle. Akuna's uncle offers her a place to stay upon her arrival in the US. However, his character quickly reveals darker aspects of the immigrant experience. He symbolized the exploitation that vulnerable immigrants often encounter, especially within their own families. His character, he manipulates Akuna's situation, expecting her to take care of him and help him with his immigration papers. This highlights how familial relationships can sometimes turn toxic in the face of desperation. This character sheds light on the power dynamics and exploitation that can occur within immigrant families, complicating the idea of support and safety. A crucial moment is when he states, he expected me to take care of him to help him with his papers. This clearly shows his expectations and how he takes advantage of Akuna's vulnerable position. And lastly, we have the American boyfriend. Akuna's romantic interest in America represents a different facet of her experience as an immigrant. This boyfriend is portrayed as well meaning, but ultimately clueless about the real struggles Akuna faces as an immigrant. Cultural clash, his superficial understanding of her life and experiences exemplifies the disconnect that can exist between cultures. He embodies the privilege of being unaware of the complexities of immigrant struggles. One significant line is when he says, he said he didn't want to hear about Nigeria. His statement underscores his reluctance to engage with Akuna's reality, further emphasizing her sense of isolation. Now I will pass this to Najwa.
this short story is incomplete without knowing its theme. So let's dive into the theme first. The main theme of the thing around your neck is alienation and the immigrant experience. So the story primarily focuses on Afia's feelings of isolation and disconnection as she navigates life in a foreign country. Her emotional struggle is deeply tied to her identity as an African immigrant in America, where she faces cultural differences, racial stereotypes, and a sense of not belonging. This theme is reflected in her loneliness, strained relationships, and the metaphorical thing around her neck, symbolizing the emotional burden of her alienation. In the thing around your neck, the author uses Akuna's experiences to explore the theme of alienation and the immigrant experience in a new and often unwelcoming environment. Akuna's feelings of isolation stem from her journey to America, where her expectation of opportunity clashed with the reality of loneliness and misunderstanding. The story captures her emotional struggle as she feels out of place and burdened by the weight of her experiences, especially as she tries to balance her Nigerian identity with the challenges of life in America. Her, her relationships are strained due to cultural differences and stereotypes that deepen her feelings of alienation. This theme is further symbolized by the thing around her neck, which represents the psychological pressure she endures, almost as though her isolation and disconnection physically weigh on her. The story, the story presents the complex emotional landscape many immigrants face. While seeking belonging, they often encounter new barriers that leave them feeling even more detached. In Akuna's case, her journey is not just about physical migration, but also about the emotional impact of being unseen and misunderstood in a foreign place. And that's it for the themes. Now, let us explore more by analyzing the plot of the story. So, the story, the plot for the story is divided into three, which is rising action, climate action, and also falling action. The first one, for the rising action, Akuna wins a visa lottery and moves from Nigeria to the United States. Expecting prosperity and opportunities, she is instead met with loneliness, alienation, and low-wage jobs. She struggles to adapt to a new culture, feeling disconnected from her family back home and dealing with stereotypes from the people around her. Akuna eventually enters a romantic relationship with an American man, but the culture and racial differences between them create tension. She feels that he fetishizes her Africanness, and this adds to her sense of alienation. So for the textual evidence, you thought everybody in America had a car and a gun. Your uncles and aunties and cousins thought so too. But when you arrived, you found that America was not a big gleaming house, nor was it a place where everybody was rich. So this line emphasizes her initial disillusionment upon arrival in America. The next one, he would tell you that he loved Africa. He read all the books by the African writers and would point out the countries on his wall map of Africa. You felt grateful, and then you started to feel a hollow space in your chest. This passage reveals how Akuna's romantic partner's obsession with her Africanness adds to her alienation, as his focus on her identity feels objectifying. And then the next one is climate action. So The turning point occurs when Akuna confronts the emotional burden she has been carrying, symbolized by the metaphorical thing around her neck. The growing discomfort in her relationship, her homesickness, and the pressures of being in a foreign country culminate in her realization that she cannot fully connect with the man she is dating or with the world around her. The thing around her neck tightens, reflecting her internal struggle and emotional suffocation. So, to strengthen the point, at night, something would wrap itself around your neck, something that very nearly choked you before you fell asleep. So, this metaphor captures Akuna's suffocating feelings of alienation, homesickness, and cultural dislocation. Her inability to connect with her surroundings or her boyfriend intensifies, leading to the story's emotional climax. And lastly, for the falling action, Akuna eventually decides to break free from the relationship and return to Nigeria to be with her family. This decision marks a shift in her emotional state as she seeks to regain control over her life and her identity. Though the ending is open, the story concludes with Akuna beginning to loosen the figurative thing around her neck, suggesting she is on a path to healing and self-empowerment. So for the textual evidence, the thing that wrapped itself around your neck, that nearly choked you before you fell asleep, started to loosen to let go. This suggests that Akuna's decision to reclaim her life and identity by distancing herself from the man and from America has started to alleviate the emotional burden she's been carrying. So that's it for the plot. I hope this can help all of us for a better understanding of the storyline. Then I will talk about its literary devices. First one, the first one is metaphor. The thing around your neck symbolizes Akuna's emotional burden, representing her feelings of suffocation and alienation in America. For the textual evidence, at night, something would wrap itself around your neck, something that very nearly choked you before you fell asleep. So, this metaphor highlights her internal struggle and the weight of her experiences. The next one is symbolism. Akuna's visa symbolizes hope and opportunity, while her disillusionment reflects the complexities of the immigrant experience. For the textual evidence, you were supposed to feel grateful, but instead you felt this crushing loneliness. So, this line indicates the gap between her expectations and her actual experiences, symbolizing broader immigrant challenges. The third one is allusion. The story alludes to broader societal issues such as immigration and racial identity. And for the evidence, you were not just an African, you were a black woman, and the man who loved you was white. This allusion to race highlights the complexities of their relationship and societal perceptions. The next one, let's move on to the tone. The narrative tone shifts from hopeful to melancholic, reflecting Akuna's journey. For example, you had imagined America as a place where people were not poor, where you would be happy. This contrast in tone captures her initial hopes and subsequent disappointment. The next one is contrast. Adichie contrasts Akuna's life in Nigeria with her experiences in America. For the textual evidence, back home, you were the best student, here, you were a waitress. This contrast highlights cultural differences and the change in her social status. And then the next one is imagery. Adichie uses vivid imagery to convey settings and emotions, emphasizing the contrast between expectations and also reality. For the textual evidence, you thought everybody in America had a car and a gun. Your uncles and aunties and cousins thought so too. But when you arrived, you found that America was not a big gleaming house, nor was it a place where everybody was rich. So this imagery illustrates Acuna's disillusionment upon arriving in America. And then the next one is foreshadowing. Early indications of Acuna's discomfort hint at her eventual realization and decision to leave her relationship. For example, you begin to feel invisible. This foreshadows her struggle with identity and connection, setting the stage for her emotional journey. And the next one is characterization. Akuna's internal thoughts and feelings create a nuanced portrayal of her struggles and desires. You felt grateful, and then you started to feel a hollow space in your chest. This characterization allows readers to connect with her emotional state. The last one is point of view. The story is told from a second-person perspective, addressing Akuna directly as you. For example, you knew by people's reaction that you two were abnormal. So this perspective immerses readers in Akuna's experiences and heightens emotional urgency. And that's it for me. Now, let us move on to the next presenter.
Thank you, Najwa. So, how does the writer infuse cultural authenticity in this short story? Adichie employs a variety of techniques to immerse readers in Akuna's world and accurately portray the immigrant experience. First, let's look how the writer provides rich cultural details. She describes traditional foods like jollof rice and egusi soup, which aren't just meals but carry cultural significance. For Acuna, these foods symbolize home and familiarity, providing comfort in a foreign country. The way Adichie writes about these foods allows readers to experience a small piece of Nigerian culture and see how these details anchor Akuna's identity even as she faces new surroundings. Next, Adishi's use of authentic dialogue is essential in conveying Akuna's experience. She includes Nigerian pidgin and English in a way that's natural and reflective of Akuna's cultural background. For instance, Akuna's boyfriend doesn't always understand her, and at one point, he even says he doesn't want to hear about Nigeria. This shows how a disconnect, cultural gap that Akuna feels as she tries to navigate her identity between two worlds. Adichie also uses symbolism effectively to express cultural authenticity. The thing around your neck, which is used as a metaphor, represents Akuna's feelings of isolation, homesickness, and the weight of her dual identity. It symbolizes her struggles to feel truly at home, neither fully fitting into American society nor feeling fully connected to her Nigerian roots. We also see exploration of identity and displacement. Akuna's immigrant experience, her feeling of alienation, homesickness, and disconnection are relatable to anyone who has ever felt out of place. The contrast between her Nigerian background and the American culture she tries to adapt to create a tension that runs throughout the story. The characters are also complex and multidimensional, reflecting the layered experiences of real people rather than stereotypes. Akuna, her uncle, and her American boyfriend are each given distinct, often conflicting motivation, adding depth to the narrative. Finally, Adichie enhances the emotional impact with emotional resonance through Akuna's internal monologue. The protagonist's emotional struggles, particularly her longing for home, resonate with readers on a deeply personal level, showcasing Adish's talent for bringing authentic emotion to life in her storytelling. Thanks for sticking with us so far. Now, how does the selected short story benefit you in enhancing your own awareness and appreciation in promoting understanding among cultures with reference to communities familiar to you? Firstly, this story gives us exposure to immigrant experiences, which may not be something everyone has directly faced, but it is important to understand. Through Akuna's feelings of displacement, loneliness, and homesickness, Adichie helps readers experience the emotional journey of immigrants trying to find their place in a foreign land. This theme is relatable for anyone who has ever felt like an outsider or struggled to fit in. For me, it opened my eyes to the challenges immigrants often encounter beyond the surface level. The story also introduces cultural nuances and values specific to Nigerian culture, such as family dynamics, traditional foods, and cultural practices. For example, Adichie describes food like jollof rice and egusi soup not only as elements of Nigerian cuisine but as symbols of identity and comfort for Akuna. These details remind us of the importance of celebrating cultural differences and recognizing how these aspects shape people's life. It is also a reminder that even though we come from diverse backgrounds, everyone has these personal connections to their heritage. Furthermore, this story encourages meaningful dialogue about cultural differences and similarities, making it easier to address stereotypes and misunderstandings. When we discuss stories like this, it becomes a way to reflect on our own communities and assumptions. For example, Akuna's boyfriend, through well meaning, sometimes dismisses her Nigerian identity, which brings up the topic of how we might unintentionally overlook or oversimplify someone else's culture. Reading about Akuna's experiences encourages us to be more mindful and open when interacting with people from different backgrounds. On a personal level, Akuna's story made me reflect on my own identity. Her journey emphasizes the idea that cultural identity isn't something you leave behind just because you are in a different country. It made me think about my own roots and how our backgrounds influence our identities and sense of belonging. In a way, Akuna's struggle to bridge two worlds mirrors our own efforts to build connection within diverse communities. Lastly, the emotional resonance of the story inspires empathy. Through Akuna's struggle, we feel her longing for home and the weight of her cultural identity. This kind of empathy is powerful because it reminds us of our shared humanity despite cultural differences. We might come from different places and have unique backgrounds, but the feeling of wanting to belong and be understood are universal. To conclude, the thing around your neck offers us a powerful exploration of cultural identity, the challenges faced by immigrants, and the importance of empathy in a multicultural world. Through Akuna's story, The writer brings the reader into her struggles with identity and displacement, allowing us to understand these experiences on a personal level.
We hope we hope our present, we hope our presentation today has helped you see how editing presenting a single perspective, but inviting us to connect across cultural boundaries. The challenges Akuna faces remind us of the importance of respect and empathy when interacting with others from different backgrounds, especially in diverse communities like ours.
Thank you all for your attention and for joining us on this journey. Let's continue embracing diversity, not just in literature, but in our everyday lives.